All right. Very good. So let's get going. It's going to be roughly an hour-ish, maybe a little longer if there's a lot of questions, which my guess is there will be. Um, this picture, by the way, was taken at the India drone show with my cell phone. So it I'll tell you, there are, even though I have a professional camera and professional lenses, of which I've got over 100,000 pictures with, the cell phone takes some shots that are so hard to take with a regular camera that it's like, oh, okay, it at least recorded something I can use. So I have become uh, very much open to cell phone photography. You can do some really great stuff with it. There's not a lot of limitations. There's mainly two limitations, and we'll talk about them a little bit. But other than that, you can pretty much do everything. But before we get started, I just, by a show of hands, how many people have an iPhone? Okay. How many people have Androids? Yeah, it's an iPhone crowd. Okay. Unfortunately, I have an Android. So everything has been tested on my Android and it works fine. And my daughter has an iPhone and I sent it to her and I said, check everything on here, make sure I'm right. And so I think it's all right. But if it's one of the differences between the two, that's complication one, iPhone or Android. Then you have the model because an iPhone 13 is not like an iPhone 17. So it's as you move through every generation, it changes. Same thing on the Android side. And it's not worthy of the debate which one's better photography wise. They're both really good. So let's get going here. So let's go what the course is and what it's not. If you came in thinking I would teach you everything you could do with your cell phone, this is not the course. Okay. What it is an overview of terminology and techniques to help you take better photos, an introduction to general cell phone cameras and options on most cell phones and what they do, and it's okay to experiment. It's okay to take a photo and keep it. It's also okay to take a photo just for the heck of it and delete it. What would happen if I did this? It's okay. Why the camera in your pocket is more powerful than you think? Well, it starts with when you tap the take picture, a whole bunch of stuff happens. One is instantly the computer on your phone, which is more powerful than the computers that got us to the moon and got men on the land on the surface. These phones are much more powerful. Okay. It then looks at and says, can I find any faces? Or is there any motion? It makes adjustments for that. It evaluates the brightness and the darkness of the photo, makes adjustments for captures multiple frames. So if you think you're taking one picture, you're not. Okay. Every time you press that button, it's taking more than one photo. The question is, how many, and can you see all the ones that it took? And the answer is probably not. And it's on your settings. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But all of the cell phones take multiple photos. It's called computational photography. It takes all those and then blends them together into what the camera thinks is the best photo. So it will look and say, oh, I think this one's focused. If it's in portrait mode, it says, oh, I can see the eyes. Versus in those multiples, someone might have blinked. Okay. By the way, at the end, I'll show you this is being recorded. And the camera club has a spot, and I'll show you where it is. And this will be up there probably by Friday. Okay. So, all right. So you can get it all and watch it again if I haven't bored you enough. Okay. Well, what makes a good photo? a picture of your grandchild may or may not be a great photo. The question is, does it tell a story? Or is it just a picture? That's kind of the difference between a snapshot and a photo. Does it tell a story? Is it technically okay? Is it focused? And these cameras really keep things in focus mostly. And is it exposed properly? That's a bigger issue. And second, what's the composition? And there's guidelines, and we'll go through a bunch of examples, because I think that's one of the things we can do to really improve your photography is talk about composition. How are they different? They can do a lot of stuff, and you can read that left-hand side. The right-hand side is, why is it different than a pro cam? Okay. The main difference with the pro camera is got interchangeable lenses. That's the big deal. You could not see a photographer at an NFL football game using a cell phone to take a photo. Not because it won't, but because it doesn't have the reach that he needs. The lens on those is somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000. Depends on exactly the model they're using. But I'm not exaggerating. There's $20,000 lenses. Okay. That's one of the big differences. The sensors are much larger. And what does that mean? Well, that means there's more pixels, and more pixels, if you get them in focus, means that if I want to make it bigger, I can do that. I can take a pro camera and I can enlarge it to a billboard and it'll look pretty good. I don't know that I could get a cell phone picture on a billboard and it would look pretty good. I don't know. I haven't tried. Okay. One of the things, it's a good news and the bad news about a pro camera is the photographer has full control. Whether you want it's irrelevant, you've got it. Okay. There is an auto mode on them, and that again depends on the camera and how old it is and a whole bunch of other things. The photographer makes several decisions generally, and we're going to talk about all of them. The aperture, the shutter speed, and the ISO. Those three things, those three variables can decide how bright the photo will be. Okay. And on your cell phone, you can adjust two of those three. The aperture is fixed on all current cell phones that are sold in the United States. We'll put that in the United States because China's got one that actually has a variable that is not selling well over there. It's just too complicated. Many lenses cost more than the cell phone, the top end, and pro cameras are often restricted from many menus. That's one of my things I don't like. I mean, I have a camera. If I try to take it in, they won't let me take it in. So why? That's the rules that every event I've ever been to has. I don't know the reason. I think you're competing with the professionals that are on the floor that paid to get there or are being paid to get there, whichever. And then it probably has to do with rights to some photos as well. Anyhow, those are some of the differences between the two. Cell phones have a number of things that you can vary. There's the number of pixels. The iPhones and the Androids today, the vast majority of them have a 12 megapixel, MP is megapixel, lots and dots, sensor. It's good for general photography. You can do great enlargements to 8x10. After that, it's nice to have some software helping you out because I can do a 20x30 from a cell phone without a problem, but I have other software I'll use to make sure I get it really nice. Okay. Many of those cameras have a 48 or 50 megapixel setting. None of the cameras actually have a 48 or 50 megapixel sensor. It is all marketing. It is all computational photography. It takes a bunch of photos that are just slightly off and says, oh, this one came here, and it uses the computer power to generate a big file. Okay. The worst thing about that file is it's often too big to do anything with. You can't send it because it's over that 20 meg limit. And most sites won't let you post it. So most of the time use the 12, the standard lens. Some of the modes. The general one, the one that you're usually start in, is called photo, and it works pretty well. You know, what I usually do is, if I'm going to use my cell phone, the first thing I do is take it out, take a picture in photo mode, and then I start playing with it. Okay, see how good it did the first time. There's portrait mode. How many in here have actually used portrait mode? Good number. There's some real nice features with portrait mode. One is it sensitive to faces and eyes. That's one of the things. The other thing is it literally measures distance and says, oh, the stuff in the background, I'm going to make it more out of focus. And it wasn't actually out of focus, but the computer's going to make it out of focus. Okay. There's another one called video. I don't use that mode hardly ever, but once in a while I do. There's night photography. You can take pictures of the Milky Way or stars or the moon. I don't have an example. I probably should have put one in of taking a shot of the moon with your cell phone, because it's probably going to be a white blob in the middle of your photo. I see a lot of heads shaking, so you've tried. And we'll talk about how to do that a little later. There's panorama mode. That's kind of an interesting mode. Do you want to come in? Okay. It's an interesting mode. You take your phone and just kind of go like this. Yeah. Did you come for the class?
I thought it was full.
Yeah, there's a couple seats in the back.
Okay.
Come on in. That's okay. That's a nice mode. You can get literally 360 degrees if you're that good. I'm not. I've never done that. I have done pretty wide, 120 degrees type of stuff. And those make some really interesting photos. I have a really nice one that I got when I was at St. Andrews on. I got the whole 18th hole in there. Yeah, those are nice memory shots.
You're not there today.
Been there, not today. Maybe it may be almost as hot there as here. There's another setting on or a mode on your camera, and it depends on the camera and exactly which one it is, whether it's a setting or a mode. There's motion or live. What that's doing is, we'll talk about it a little bit in the next slide. There's pro or expert. That just depends on which model of which phone you're using, what they call it. It allows you to control most of the stuff. Good news is it allows you to, if you turn it on, you're not allowing anymore. You must take over. Okay. And there's burst mode. So if you're taking a picture of someone in Mexico jumping off the cliff and a cliff diver, and you want to get them, you have them. Did you know? I think everyone's phone in here takes burst mode photos. Does anyone know how to do it? Take your volume control, press and hold. Volume up will put it in burst mode. And that's on iPhones and Android phones. I tried it on every phone I could, and it worked on every one. And there's other modes depending on how new the camera is. Okay. This one is a little bit technical, but you kind of need to know a little bit about this. JPEG, that's kind of the industry standard. Everybody uses it. The big thing is that underlying word, lossy compression. It takes your 12 megapixel photo and crunches it down to a much smaller file and says, I don't need this data, and throws it away. Literally, Rosa away, you can't get it back. Okay. Hayek is newer and it's the same concept and it throws even more away, but it does a better job of picking what it needs. So it's a smaller file. It's a little more scientific than the old JPEG, which was developed in 70s or 80s. Hayek was developed in like 2010, right? So it's a much newer thing. PNGs. PNGs have two major differences from JPEGs. One difference is they don't throw any data. So if you take a picture of something, they got all the data from your picture. Okay. That's one. The second, if you've ever tried to do a presentation like this and taken a picture and you want to take part of it and put it on there, you always end up with the full square. Well, if you take and select the item and say, make it a PNG, now the background goes transparent and you can have your item there and move it wherever you want on your screen. So that's that transparency is the big difference in my opinion. I use PNG anytime I want transparency. The extra keeping all the pixels, I don't use that mode for that. I use the DNG or digital negative. That's what cell phones always cause it. Pro cameras have, they call them raw files. Same thing. It's what the camera saw on the sensor, not changed at all. That's what it had. And that has to be processed. So to get a good photo out of a raw photo, you really need to edit. So if you don't like to edit, don't use DNG. If you do like to edit, then you should probably use GNG on a file that you think you're going to want to edit. Not everybody has every photo. They say, well, I want to edit that. Well, maybe not. I have plenty of photos that I don't want to edit. Any questions on the types? Okay. All right, camera settings. Motion pictures. This is a setting, and you get to them on most cameras, most phones, by going to your camera's settings, the gear, and then going down to camera, and then there's options. Okay. And these are some of those options. Other settings, this is one where an iPhone is a little bit different how you get there, but it has all these settings. Motion photos. This is kind of nice. This is before and after. When you're taking a picture, it's doing like a burst. Okay. It's taking multiple photos and you can see the multiple photos. It's a nice thing to do. And I usually use that when I'm in portrait mode in case somebody blinks. I have the before the blink and after the blink. And so it just covers a little more area. Watermark. Many of us had little old take it with us cameras, and they used to put the date in the bottom right-hand corner, usually in red, in my opinion, ruined every photo. You can turn that back on if you want to. Every phone I know has that capability to do it. I suggest you don't do it, but you can. Tracking, how it tracks things that are moving, is an option. Composition guides. This is one I'm going to ask you to actually try a little later in the class. I suggest that you always leave the composition guidelines on your phone. It only shows when you're taking the picture. It's not in the actual picture. Okay, it just helps you make sure the phone is level. And what I hate is like this, which I'm guilty of too. I'm kind of the opinion it should be level or clearly not level. I intentionally didn't make it level. That's okay. But yeah, that's a good one. We'll talk about that a little later. Selfies, somebody noticed that this thing, when it's on the photo, it's flipping it around. Selfies say flip it or don't. That's your choice. Most people don't know that it's an option because as it comes out, I think every cell phone I know of, the default is flip. Resolution, which resolution do you want to use? Use the 12. I think there's one or two phones that now have a 24 megapixel sensor. If you have one, I would do a AI quiz on your cell phone and say, is it a real sensor or is it mathematically generated? And then what kind of file do you want to do? Do you want to do a JPEG or HIAC or a raw file, DNG? Focus. Here's the big deal. I can fix almost everything in a photo except the focus. That's the one thing you got to get right. Now, AI has gotten so good that it can sometimes actually fix the focus too, but it won't do as good a job as me getting it right. Okay, so the best thing is to get it right. Okay, how do you do that? Well, you can let the phone decide. And on most of the phones, they do a pretty good job. Remember, when you press the button, it does all those things. And one is, oh, do I find any people? Oh, can I see their face? Can I see their eyes? Yes. Let's focus on that. Automatic. Okay. Probably okay. However, if you have a group of 10 people and 3 rows of 3, which row do you want to focus on? Well, if you're thinking about it, you want to do on middle focus, middle row, but the camera will probably pick the front row. But the focus depth on a small sensor is usually pretty good. They'll probably all be pretty well focused. Okay. But you can tap the screen to say, here's where I want it to focus. Okay, just a simple tap. Right there. Focus right there. You can focus, tap there and hold, and that changes some modes. Unlike before, if I tap a spot and then I move my phone, it won't be focused anymore. But if I press and hold, a little lock symbol will come up and it's locked on that spot. And so as long as it's in the frame, it'll be focused there. Okay. It will also allow you to adjust the exposure. Oh, it's too bright or not bright enough. Depending on which phone you got, it's left, right, or up, down, but it's the concept's the same. You move it and say, oh, that looks better. And that is how you fix that moonshot. Okay, you point it up, you hit the moon, tap and hold. Now adjust it so that the moon looks the way you want it to. That's not hard to do. When you're photographing people, for me, it's really annoying when their eyes are out of focus. And that's cropped. So that was full frame. This is all from my pro camera, but the concepts are all the same. I had it focused on the eye and I made sure it was focused. And you can see when I enlarge it how well I had it focused on the eye. I used to do a lot of theater photography for the high school back in Calabasas. And one time I did all the headshots for the program. And one of the times I just took the eyeball itself. And they were all perfectly focused because that's what I concentrate on. And I just showed the picture of the eyeball and I gave them a contest. Whose eye was it? They had fun with that one. Anyhow, when you take pictures of people, if you can have leading lines, that helps. Notice that great big white thing? Kind of leads you right to her eyes. You don't think about it too much. That's the whole thing, though. It does. both up and down, kind of takes you right into the eyes. Shallow depth of field. So the background, which was only, I don't know, 5 feet away, is out of focus. Okay. And this is another compositional thing. She's looking into the frame. Okay. So when I say looking into the frame, okay. All right, now it's going to decide to, there we go. Too far away? Battery bad? Well, if it gives me any more trouble. The light's on, so it should think. Okay. Always have a backup. Bye. Get that out of there. And there. Okay. All right. Sorry for that. Okay. On to the next slide. What is depth of field? Or abbreviated DOF? Well, usually that goes away. Oh well. What is depth of field? The two pictures tell you. The one on the left is shallow depth of field. This is the same setup. The camera was in the same spot. It was about 4 feet from that list of depths. And so one of them was shot with a big lens, focused close, at a very wide open aperture, which is a low number. And you can see the 3 feet was in focus, and the next one you can't even see. Versus when I shot at f/22, all of them are in focus. By default, your cell phone camera is more likely to do the same. Okay, if you don't want that, you're going to have to work at it a little bit. The easiest way is to use portrait mode. You can use portrait mode on anything. It doesn't have to be a portrait. And the main thing it's doing is it says there's a close-up thing and a not close-up thing. The not close-up thing is going to be less focused. So to show you the difference, this is taken with mine. Just taking a regular photo. I probably have more pictures of my office than any other place in the world. And I took the picture of that little glasses cleaner, and I was this far away from it. And the wall in the background's probably 15, 20 feet. And so in just regular mode, the front is focused perfectly and the background's a little out of focus. So that's something focused at 1.5 feet versus 20 feet. Okay, I put it in portrait mode. Look at what it did to the back. And then some phones have more options. Mine has something called virtual f-stop. And I said, make it f1.4 and look at how much more out of focus it threw back. The difference between image 2 and 3 is computational photography. The actual picture taken was the same in all 3 places. The computer made the difference. How to get sharper images. I know there's a tendency to pinch zoom. Don't. If you want a really sharp photo, use the proper lens. Most of the cameras, the newer, a little bit newer, maybe 3, 4 years, somewhere in there, have 2 to 3 lenses. 3 is a nice number. This gives you a wide angle, a normal, and a telephoto. usually 3x. Okay. Use the one that works best for you. If you're taking a photo, which one portrays the image you want? And a lot of times I'll try all three. Say, I like this one better. Okay. Only the optical lenses produce the best quality. Okay. Pick the focus spot, not the one the camera thinks, particularly if you have multiple items that you want in focus or something in focus, like picture of the cactus right in front of you and everything else out of focus. Don't use the 48 megapixel or 50 megapixel camera except in good light. Come on in. There's some seats back, a couple of them. There's one right here if you want it. It's computational photography. It's using the same 12 megapixel and then trying to create pixels. But if there wasn't enough light to start with, when it creates these pixels, they have what's referred to as noise. There'll be a lot of noise in it. And so they just aren't very good pictures. If you're outside in the bright sunlight and you want to do it, go ahead. Okay. It's not bad under the best if you have a nice one. I quit using it. Once I found out that it was only computational photography, not truly a different sensor, I said, why? Just use the one I want. Clean your camera lens. Fingerprints mess up your photo. They really do. Okay. And when backlight situations, like someone near the beach with the sunset behind, always take two photos. One where you're focused at the close person and one for the far person, and see what the sunset and see which one you'd like. Okay. And if you want to play around with the exposure, pick the person, press and hold the person. Now it'll put that little lock symbol and you can change the exposure to make it look the way you want. Again, that's how you do the moon. Okay, so now we're going to go through a bunch of examples of composition. These are all my photos. I won't tell you the world's best photos, but I think they show the idea that I wanted to show. Probably know where this one is. Yeah. There's a couple things I would tell you that I pay attention to on this photo. Okay. All right. Here we go. One is the bottom of the four crosses in the rule of thirds. The bottom left one is dead center on the boat that I wanted to bring your attention to. And I couldn't move the background. I was on a boat when I took this and I had to do what I did, but it got the idea. The other thing that was really important though is all the wires going up and down on the bridge are actually up and down. Look, they're perfectly aligned. You know, it's okay. That's why I like to keep it on. It helps you say, oh, I wasn't cockeyed. Of course, you can fix it in cropping it, but I don't have to if you get it right. This one was taken in Nova Scotia. It's another example that you don't have to be exactly on the rule of thirds, but it's kind of the concept. The boats are kind of on the bottom thirds, and the line through the middle shows that I'm nicely aligned with the horizon. One of the kind of rules of composition is don't put the horizon dead center in the middle. Just a little off helps. This is off, but not, I mean, it's what, halfway maybe? So getting it off of center is amazing how much better your photo will look. Yeah, this was taken in South Africa. That's mom and her cub, who was almost 1 year old, and mom was teaching them how to hunt. And they were looking at look at the eyes though. I mean, the intensity of the eyes. They didn't know we were there. It tells a story. It uses the light. They were lit and the background wasn't. I use selective focus. It's in symmetry. It's actually uses the rule of thirds pretty well. Symmetry is a big deal. And that you really can't fix. Depends, like this photo. If I had a not moved to the right spot, I couldn't really fix it in processing. Some things you got to kind of get right when you take the picture. And this one, I literally was there, and as I'm looking at the sides of the thing, and I'm making sure that I get the same number of columns on both sides. I pay attention to this stuff like that. It matters. It's level. The pillars are up and down. The use of light, your eye jumps right to that white center. Okay. There's lots of ways to get there, but you can see what I was thinking when I took this photo. I was using the rule of thirds. It's off center. The lighting draws your eye to it. That white side of the lighthouse, just your eye just goes there. That's kind of a general thought on photography. Your eye tends to go to the white. I don't know why, it just does. This was a family portrait that I took. They really loved the photo. I doubt they figured out why, but it's not an accident that all those white lines lead to them. That wasn't an accident. No, that was pretty calculated. Also, this is one of the advantages of a pro camera. This would have been a little dark, and I had a flash with me, and I mounted it on a stand, and so it just a pop of light. It didn't light the subject. It just made them not dark. That's my granddaughter. When you're taking photos of people, one of the things to think about is if I'm going to crop it, where? And there's some guidelines. You don't crop right at those red lines. Above or below each of those red lines. Generally, the easy way to say it is you don't crop at a joint. You don't crop it at the knee, at the waist, at the elbow, at the wrist, at the neck. Best photos are just below the neck. Okay. So that's just a tip. If you can think about it, it helps. It's not a big deal, but it will help your photography. The other thing is, if you're thinking about printing it, it's really only valid if you're thinking about printing it. The size and ratios of your camera are not going to be the same as the printer. And so I just took the photo here and I said, oh, 2x3, it was this, 5x7, it was that, 8x10, it was that. And you can see if I hadn't thought about it ahead of time, if this was the full frame, it wasn't, by the way, but if it had been, I would have had to cut off pieces to print them. So my thought process is, if you're thinking about printing, shoot a little while. So if instead of using the 3x, if you're saying, oh, I know I'm going to print this, use the 1x photo. It gives you a little bit more coverage. Okay. Just a tip, not a big deal. Editing. The world's best photographers edit. Good editing software. There's a fairly good editing piece of software on every phone in here. The manufacturer gives you some decent, not great, decent editing software. However, there's also other software, some of which is free and some of which you have to pay for. Adobe is the #1 name in photography editing. And they offer a thing called Adobe Lightroom Mobile, which is free. I thought about doing this whole class in Adobe Lightroom Mobile because an iPhone and an Android phone is identical. And it didn't matter which model you were on, it was always the same. And but then again, there's probably only 1 or 2 in here that may have that app. So it was like, okay. If you sign up for the photography suite, which is what I use every day, that costs money on the order of $100 a year, maybe a little more. But if you really don't want to buy any software, nowadays you can just tell your AI to re-edit the photo. And so you can see the 2 photos. What I did was I went into Adobe Firefly, which isn't free, but there's other ones that I could have used. And here's the command I gave it: fix the overall lighting, brighten the man in black, and remove the creases from the back. That's what it did. Yeah. So if you don't want to buy software, just use your AI software and say, this is what I want. Particularly if you upgraded your AI, some people pay a little extra to get the better AI, then definitely use that. There's a bunch of them you can use. It's just your choice. They all work. The speed of which you get it and the quality you get is roughly the same. The speed varies dramatically. And a lot of times the speed is controlled by how busy the data center is. So a friend of mine just got a really nice laptop computer. I mean, it's designed for photography. Paid over $3,000 for it. And it really, really does things really fast. And I said, you know, in a year or two, all those things you can do on your really fast computer are all going to be done in the data center. And that's where we're going. So, I mean, right now, that was done in data center. So how you get to learn all this stuff? I couldn't teach you each what you need to do on your phone. Okay. So here's the way to go about any one of these things. You pick out the AI program that you want to use, and you say, how do I take a picture with my iPhone 17 Pro to get a photo with the result that you want? A perfectly exposed moon, a waterfall where all the stuff is just nice and smooth. How do I do that? It'll tell you. So I took my cell phone out. Anybody recognize this? I went out there and I said, I know I wanted the photo on the left. That was my objective. And if I just took the regular picture, I got the picture on the right. And then I said, how do I take a picture of the waterfall with my iPhone 17 to get a silky looking water? Since I don't have an iPhone, I did it with my Android. So I used a different set. But since I was going to do one with iPhone, this is what it said, and this will work. That's the steps. That's how you do it. But the reason I'm kind of encouraging this AI thing is you have the instruction manual with you. Just ask for it. People say, well, how do you know how to do that? I said, yeah, do I know how to do it without asking? Maybe. I know more than probably most of the people in here, but I tell you, I don't know all of the stuff you can do on all these things. But that's a nice example. That would be a waterfall, a river, or whatever. And you could say silky looking water or out of focus. Wording isn't precise. You just have to have the concept down, right? So it's pretty simple to do. And like I said, you got it right there on your phone. And I intentionally, when I took this photo, didn't do it ahead of time. And I walked out there and I did it. I said, okay, well, oh yeah, that's how I do it. Okay. I actually knew how to do it. But
I'm almost seeing a rainbow, but.
yeah, that's just timing. Yeah, that and because it's now a multiple exposure, what it's doing, the way it actually works is it takes, like I said, when you press that button, it takes a whole bunch of photos. And it says, oh, all these things are still. And then it takes all the stuff that move and says, that's what they want. And so it takes and puts all those together. And
Yeah, I can't take a picture for you though.
it probably can. One of the little ones on my phone that I can do, I never press the button. If I'm in the camera mode, I've got one of my settings to say, smile, takes the picture. People say, you're taking a picture of a fountain. I know, smile. Who takes the picture? Okay. Here's one. How do you capture a beautiful sunset? With a Samsung S25. There's how you do it. So the whole concept here is this concept works. And like I said, I couldn't give you instructions for your phone because even if you have an iPhone and I had an iPhone and you had a 13 or a 17, they would be different. So pretty much with 17, if you took a picture of the sunset, it might just get it right. So they're getting so much better at what they can do. Sharing your photos. You can share them in numerous ways. The most common way is to text or email them. You can also do a share that has things, people whose phone is proximately close. You can do that. Androids do it. iPhone introduced it maybe 10 years ago, a long time ago. And I think the Androids caught up about 4 or 5 years ago. And that sharing tech, things in proximity to you, just share it with them. I have a Mac and a Windows machine. And to this day, my Mac hates my Android phone. It hates it. It will not let me plug it in and say, take the file off of it. It won't do it. So I share the photo with my Mac. It's crazy. That's the kind of stuff that just drives everybody crazy. Okay, you can also use Facebook or Instagram. A lot of people in here probably do. Probably 90%, 95% snapshots versus planned photos. But you can get some really nice photos, even snapshots, and you can edit them later. You can share them with Google Photos, Apple iCloud, Prime Photos. I use Dropbox, and they can share the photos and I can let anybody share them or see them that I want. And besides sharing your photos, it backs up your photos. So I highly encourage using one of those tools, Google Photos, Apple iCloud, Prime Photos, Dropbox, whichever, your choice. But have it do it. That way, when you get a new phone, you still have all your photos. Okay, how do you get better photos? This is kind of the summary slide. Take lots of pictures. The more pictures you take, You start to see things, you get experience. Experiment. It doesn't hurt to hit the wrong button. Might not like the result. Think about composition. One of the things that is kind of nice, and we at the Camera Club, we talk about it a lot. We talk about border patrol. And what that means is you go around the edges and say, is there just something sticking out that doesn't belong? Let's get rid of it. That's really easy to do on your cell phone. Okay, keep things level. Have the subject looking toward, like this boat's going into the frame as opposed to being just about out of the frame. Something about being just about out of the frame for things, it just feels uncomfortable. Middle's okay, but generally you're better off if it's not dead center. Remember, focus, composition, exposure. Those are the three things which are really important. And when this is fun. If you're photographing your children or grandchildren, your grandchildren, our children are all same eye level as we are now, if not up. Yeah, when you're taking pictures of your younger grandchildren, get down to their eye level. Get down to their eye level. People are used to seeing down to kids. And it makes it more interesting when it's not, because that's not what you normally see. And that because it's not what you normally see, it's more interesting. Today's cell phones are simple, easy to use. The newest models have incorporated some form of AI. And while they're easy to use, if you're willing to explore and learn and practice, they can produce wonderful photos. Bill and his wife, who were sitting here, went to Switzerland. They took some marvelous photos with their cell phone, and I printed them out nice and big, 20 by 30, and they are absolutely gorgeous. So, like I said, I wouldn't think about using my cell phone if I was doing the billboard, but up to 20 by 30, if you have all the software you need, great. If you don't, then kind of 8 by 10. But they do a great job at 8 by 10. Okay, a little plug for the Camera Club. It's very simple to get there. scshcameraclub.com. Okay, that's how you get there. You don't have to be a member. You can get there. It has when our activities are, our calendar, some photo galleries with stuff we've taken, member photos, member galleries. YouTube resources is something that's worthwhile. And that is where this presentation will end up. You go to YouTube resources and then you click on it and it'll say, okay, do you want meetings or travel logs? So you want a meeting. We also do interesting travel logs. I was something I started 2 years ago, and we get a fair amount of people from around that just want to come see it. I mean, if they're in the Camera Club, they're probably decent photos, but these are not the same thing that you had when you were a kid and they took out the carousel and they went click, 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 click of all the slides. People that are doing these are actually doing research and telling you about where they were, why they were there, why this photo is interesting, how to get there. Little things like, oh, you're taking the Northwest Passage? Oh, how would you get a cruise to take the Northwest Passage? I think he even had an approximate cost, which is dangerous whenever you do anything in this place. There's always this big answer. But yeah, you might try that. So those kinds of things, we publish those in the email blast that comes out when we're there. So look for them. We earlier this year, I think it was April, we had a deal where we wanted to practice portraits. So we just put in the email blast, if you want a free portrait, come on out, we'll give you the print. hardest thing about learning to photo people is getting someone to sit still for the photo. It is, people just don't like to. And so. Yeah, it's a resource that you have, and if you want to join, click on membership and tells you how to. Full $20 a year. Okay. Let's do some real practice. Actually do something on your phone. First of all, with your phone on, turn on the guidelines. That'll be rule of thirds. On most phones, you click on the phone setting, the gear. You scroll down and pick camera. And most of them, if you don't have camera, there's a spot where you can type. You type camera, and it'll go to it. And then there'll be a list of things you can turn on and off. Go down and turn on composition guidelines. Okay, that'll turn on those lines for you. I'll go through the rest of the instructions because with a few of us can help you out if you need to. Then just take a portrait of the person sitting next to you. Right? That's really easy. Okay. Actually, take a picture. Okay. Use portrait mode. Crop it to a square. So that means you know how to crop. And then email the full size photo to me. Okay. The reason I said full size. Yeah, I'll leave it up. The reason I say full size is one of the things I don't like on an iPhone is if you don't change it, the default is a little one. And you have to say do the full size.